12:30 p.m. David Bathry sat in his office at Scotland Yard. The entire building's modern motif sickened him, with its floor-to-ceiling glass walls, industrial-grade carpeting, metallic surfaces, and linear furniture. He'd considered redesigning his private office, but had decided against it. Bringing attention to the depth of his superior sensibilities was not worth the risk. He had a role to play. That was why he always donned a cheap suit when on premises. He continued his review of the early morning feeds from every camera in and around the Murphy Street location. Even with the new information he had accumulated in the last several minutes, he wasn't sure what his next step should be. 2 men had exited the building in question but departed at different times. One he knew well, and one he did not. The latter had left wearing the overcoat that the first man had worn when he had entered the building. Bathry's main concern was with the first man. The half-blood he'd liberated long ago, but he knew the second would need to be identified and dealt with as well if he was to survive this nightmare. The cameras had lost Jack. Bathry had run facial recognition software through the massive surveillance system, hoping to target the half-blood's current location, but the bastard had been too smart to be found. Evading detection was just one of the man's many specialties. "Are you all right, sir?" a high-pitched voice asked. He hadn't even seen Gloria standing in the doorway. He looked down. Unknowingly, he had shredded his paper cup into pieces. Its remains covered the top of his desk. The bitch had failed to follow his explicit request of bringing his morning drink in his favorite cup, an artistic piece he commissioned from a renowned Berlin-based porcelain manufacturer. Having to keep up the ruse of being less than he really was, the cup was the one luxury David allowed himself at this hellhole. "Gloria, was there some reason that you brought my coffee in this?" He pointed to the paper debris. She trembled. "I'm sorry, sir. I accidentally knocked your cup off the shelf this morning. I will buy you a new one." "Not necessary." He failed to keep his tone civil. How could he, when at this very moment he was imagining what Gloria would look like with her body sliced to ribbons? "More coffee?" she asked in a wary voice. He plastered a large smile. "Thank you, dear, no. Mustn't overdo it this morning, ha!" She smiled weakly in return, and then backed away. "Imbeciles, complete imbeciles, surround me." He turned his attention back to the monitor. The second man had come out less than a half hour after the first. He had spoken with a lovely woman with a large dog. As quickly as possible, Bathry locked in on the man's features, sending them through the facial recognition program, which had been developed by a bloodliner in the United States to protect the Morvicti. Every member assigned to any military, police, or security organization around the globe had access to the sensitive software. The second man had begun walking down the street when a third man in a dark suit appeared. Bathry paused the video, staring at the image of Poole frozen on his monitor. This man was someone he had to deal with, though carefully. Poole wasn't a Bathry. The man's veins carried the blood of his enemies. Poole was a Drake. Belisarius Drake, the cousin of Octavian. Keeping the hatred secret was part of the ancient vow Bathry had sworn to uphold. He stared at the video, watching again as the unknown man jumped into a blue van. "Who are you, and why is Poole interested in you?" One way to find out. He signed into the secure database, quickly checking the recent reports from the field. It took less than a minute to find the one he was looking for. Approximately 9:20 a.m., an armed man hijacked a driver in his delivery van on Baylis Road, forced driver to take him across Waterloo Bridge. Suspect took the driver's mobile phone, disappeared on foot near Lancaster Place. The report, which has been entered on site on a PDA, went on with a description, but Bathry already knew what the man looked like. What to do with this information, especially since Poole had been closing in on the man before he had commandeered the delivery van. If Bathry could get to the man before Poole or any other Drake, he would have much-needed leverage. He also could interrogate the gunman and find out his true identity. Plus, the man might be able to lead me to the bastard whose overcoat he was wearing when he got into the van. With just a few keystrokes, he modified the report the officer had filed with 3 words: possible Ripper sighting. That was everything he needed to get an all-ports warning out on the mystery man. It served him very well for at least 3 reasons. 1, his boss, Commissioner Kevin Taylor, had been looking for any evidence that would turn the Ripper murder case over to his jurisdiction. Greedy bastard. Since Gail Simmons and Nancy Black had been killed in the center of the city, It fell to the City of London Police rather than the Met to lead the investigation. 2, it took the heat off the real Ripper, whom Bathry wanted to find before the police or the Imperial Morvicti Council did. 3, he would get someone in custody who was important to Poole, and likely the entire Drake bloodline. He would have loved to keep this from Poole, but he knew that would not be advantageous to his survival. He had to appear loyal, no matter how sickening it made him feel. And in less than 2 hours, he would have to simper and bow some more while the odious leader of the Drakes prodded around in his domain. But not for much longer. He rang Poole. 1:30 p.m. Austin watched the door to his cell swing open. Remington rushed in. "Damn, McCord, I don't know how in the world this is possible, but it really is you." Glad to see the look of relief in his old friend's eyes, Austin smiled. "In the flesh, just like I told you, Professor." Remington unlocked his handcuffs. "Shit, this is crazy." "The craziest I've ever been through, and that's saying a lot." He rubbed his wrist. "You and I have been through a ton of crazy." Remington nodded. "That's the truth, buddy." "I'm so glad you survived our last mission in Iraq." "I only survived because of you, Austin. You took that second bullet for me. If I'd been faster, you wouldn't have gotten shot in the arm by the first one." His friend gave him a big brotherly hug. "God, I still can't believe this is you. I thought you were dead. You weren't breathing. There was no heartbeat. How in the hell is this possible?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out, buddy." He stood and stretched. "It sure feels good to be out of that damn chair." "Sorry about this. I just had to be sure." "I would have done the same if I were in your shoes." Austin placed his hand on his friend's shoulder. "Tell me what happened after the sniper shot me." "When I was leaning over you, you mumbled something about Angelique. I couldn't make it out. Then Nelson said you were gone, no pulse." "What about the rest of our team?" "You and I were the only ones who got shot. The mission was a success. The senator's nephew was rescued. Nelson pulled me away from you to treat my injury. We thought you were dead." "I should have been." He still didn't have a clue how he'd survived. Would he ever find an answer as to why his heart still beat? Why there was no scar? "Do you know who the last person was with me before I supposedly died?" "Lieutenant Davis, my old friend." "What happened to the lieutenant after the mission?" Remington shook his head. "I never saw him again, though I did get a couple of letters from him. He had planned on attending your funeral service, but something in his personal life came up that kept him away. The lieutenant did send flowers and a letter to Angelique. I'd like to track him down." "I would too. I'll see what I can do." Michael was CIA. If Davis were still alive, he'd find him. "Last thing I heard about the lieutenant was that he had retired from the SEALs. The mission that took you out ended up being Davis's last, but here you are alive." Michael grabbed his shoulder. "I don't know why or who to thank, but I'm so glad you survived that mission." "Me too." It was good to be standing next to his old friend again. "What turned you around about me?" "Your dental records and fingerprints are an exact match." "And my blood?" "That's a mystery. I've never seen a military file like yours. Your history is there. Service dates, deployments, fingerprints. It's your medical history that seems to have been tampered with. Your dental exams and shot records are intact, but the rest of your medical records are missing." "That is odd. Since waking up on Murphy Street, nothing was making any sense. That note I showed you points to a serial killer who's been terrorizing the streets of London for the past week. That overcoat you stole from the building wasn't the victim's." "You think it was from the Jack guy who wrote the note?" Michael nodded. "The copycat Ripper sent a message to Dr. Thomas Wilson after killing 2 women. It was printed in all the papers. The grammar is different, but I believe this is from the real killer." "Has Harris reported back from Murphy Street yet?" "They just arrived on scene. I should hear something shortly." Remington took a deep breath. "Austin, I saw you get shot. Angelique and I went to your funeral. Where the hell have you been?" "I have no idea. I remember you and me being jumped by those Iraqi soldiers and me taking a bullet. The next thing I know, I'm waking up in that underground facility I told you about. When Angelique called me and told me that you were at our place, I had our database guys run a check. There's no record anywhere. Buddy, either you are under the deepest cover I've ever heard of, or this extraordinary tale is true. I'm just not sure which. I've got some of the highest clearance, but so far I haven't been able to verify you're part of the team yet." "Team?" Michael apparently meant the CIA or some other U.S. allies intelligence agency. "Is there anything you want to share with me now?" "I'm no spy, Michael." He nodded. "I believe you. How's Angelique?" Michael shook his head. "She's fit to be tied." Austin grinned. That's my sister for you. And my wife. So I've been told. I'm still trying to get my head around that one. Tell me about you two. In an odd way, you're the one who brought us together. We met at your funeral. I was torn up and she was brokenhearted. After the service, we started talking about you. I invited her to coffee, which turned into dinner. We kept talking and talking late into the evening until the restaurant had to kick us out. We met again for breakfast, but she had a flight to catch back to London. I thought that would be the end of it. She had her job at the university. I had to return to the Navy. But it wasn't the end of it. We kept in touch via email and phone calls. Out of the blue, I got an offer from the CIA for a position based in London. The rest is history. I love her, Austin. I love her so much. If Angelique had asked me to pick a husband for her, I would have picked you, buddy. Austin shook his head. All right, enough of the mushy stuff. Remington laughed. Damn right. We're former SEALs. We can't show our emotions like this. Some of my men might see us. They both laughed. By the way, I owe you this. His friend punched him not so lightly on the arm. I am never going to live down that butterfly comment. I bet you will. Let me take you to your sister now. Remington led him to the room with the 3 doors. 2 CIA officers with guns stood guard. How many men were assigned to coach and horses? Austin had seen 10 men himself, counting the 2 doctors, the guards, the men outside, and the bruisers that had escorted him to the interrogation room. Quite a place you have here, Professor. I never thought you'd leave the Navy for the CIA. Michael shrugged. So much for keeping my cover from you, or from Angelique after today. This is a fucked up mess, Austin, but the cat is out of the bag now. His friend placed his hand on the access control device, and the door opened. He followed him into a hallway, passing another officer. Halfway down the passage, Michael stopped and turned to him. I only wanted to protect Angelique. You've got to know that. I do, buddy. What got you into the agency? It was the only way I could be with Angelique. You love her, and she loves you. I'm glad you switched careers and married her. I wouldn't change one thing about my decision. I'm happier being with Angelique than anyone should be allowed. Michael ran his hands through his hair and then smiled. Changing the subject, I believe you need some fresh clothes. That would be nice. Jones, Michael called back to the officer. Can you have someone get Mr. McCord some clothes? I'll take care of it, sir, the officer said attentively. Thanks, Jones. What are your sizes, McCord? He rattled them off to the officer who wrote them down, and he and Remington continued down the long hallway. Another door. Once again, Remington placed his hand on another security device. It opened, and they walked into a plush living space where Angelique sat on a sofa. 1:30 p.m. Octavian Drake stared out the window as the engines quieted and the plane came to a full stop. His cousin, Belisarius, also known as Commissioner Poole, stood by a black limo ready to whisk them both to the sanctuary of the forgotten. Another limo and driver were waiting for Duchess Lupe. He turned to look at the poor grieving mother. If you need anything, Duchess, please feel free to call me. She smiled weakly. Thank you, Majesty. The Duchess' strength amazed him. He could not imagine how she was able to contain her grief of losing her child. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stood. McCord and his sister were still missing. The killer remained at large, despite the effort of the Imperial Morvicti Council's resources to locate him. Belisarius was using his position as Commissioner of the City of London Police to its fullest extent to apprehend the murderer. Octavian knew it was only a matter of time before another bloodliner was struck down. Most believed the slayings of Nancy and Gale had been the work of a copycat killer, with a mix of human and pure blood like the original, but not the original. Not Jack. Octavian wasn't so sure anymore. The photos he'd received from his servants from Murphy Street were chillingly similar to the scenes that played out in Whitechapel back in 1888. His brother Rom's murder scene filled him with rage and disgust. But Jack had been staked, as was the custom, placed in a state he could not hurt any bloodliners. He could not escape the prison without the aid of another. Had the centuries of peace between the bloodlines begun to crack? If so, which of the other 80 families had betrayed the ancient treaty? He hoped he was wrong, that Jack was the killer. Once he visited Jack's cell, he would know for certain either way. Nikolai Nathosin, as he'd been known back in Prague in 1887, had distinct features. Ivana opened the cabin door. I hope you enjoyed the flight. Thank you, the Duchess said, heading down the stairs out of the plane. She rushed to her limo. He nodded respectfully to Ivana. Always a pleasure. He met Belisarius on the tarmac. Once inside the limo, their driver, also of the Drake bloodline, turned to him. "Good to see you again, Your Majesty, though I wish it was under better circumstances." "As do I. Is everything done?" "Yes, Majesty." Atticus had been responsible for sanitizing the Drake sanctuary. "The family continues their slumber at your home." "And Romulus's body?" Atticus sighed. "I placed him with the others." "Very good." Octavian hadn't been to his home on Holland Park in months. His basement was only a temporary solution to house the sleeping Drake royals. He had to deal with the Ripper issue first. Then he would find a location that would be better suited to his family's resting place. "How long before we arrive at the sanctuary of the Forgotten?" Atticus grimaced, as any of the Morvicti would after discussing the most despised place in the world. "Only 30 minutes." "Thank you." He clicked the button that raised the privacy glass. Belisarius turned to him. "We have another problem." "And?" "David Bathry just informed me that the Metropolitan Police Service has issued an all-ports warning with McCord's description. I'm afraid time is running out." He slammed his fist on the seat. "We will not fail." Belisarius lowered his eyes. "Forgive me, Majesty." "No, cousin." He placed his hand on the man's shoulder. "There is nothing to forgive. You have been loyal to our bloodline and to all the Morvicti, but we must not give up hope, ever." "Yes, Majesty." "Once we finish our business with David Bathry at Wanstead Flats," he said, choosing to use the name of a nearby location rather than the prison's actual name, "we'll return to our London offices. There we can arrange more of our assets to find McCord and his sister." Thanks for watching Morvicti Blood, Episode 10, Sanctuary. I hope you'll like and share and subscribe and hit the notification bell. New episodes are dropping every Monday and Friday. But if you want more now and haven't watched the full 8-part sequel, Morvicti Execution, it's already live. Start there to witness the betrayal that set everything in motion. Want to read ahead and uncover secrets not yet shown on screen? The full novel, Morvicti Blood, is available now on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description if you dare. I hope you'll leave a comment. What do you think? What creeped you out? Who do you think survives? I'm going to read every comment, and I'm going to try to answer every comment or question that you have. For early access, bonus episodes, and forbidden lore, join our inner circle, Bloodbound, at patreon.com/Lee Swift. Until next time, keep your lights on, stay quiet, and whatever you do, don't answer the knock at your door.